You're listening to We Resolve to Win, the podcast for women who have resolve by women who seek to resolve conflict in their personal and professional lives and desire to negotiate no matter what. I'm your host, Elizabeth Go, a lawyer, conflict resolution expert, and negotiation coach dedicated to helping women resolve conflict at work, strengthen their relationships, and negotiate with confidence. Ladies, let's go and be great. Hey you guys, it's Elizabeth Go with We Resolve to Win, and today we are going to talk to Niesha White, who is a woman of color in tech. She is based in the South and she's African American, and so her perspective and her experiences are very unique as it relates to not only being in the tech field and being a woman, but also being a Black woman in tech. And before we dive into that episode, I want to encourage you guys to follow us on Instagram at We Resolve to Win. Again, that is We Resolve to Win, and also join our Facebook community. I'm proud of the Facebook community that we are building. I'm proud of the great conversations that are happening thus far. And I wanted to share this comment that I received recently on an Instagram posting. A person by the name of Culture and Arts Mom, she writes, "Thank you for sharing your story today and for showing up for your followers time and time again. I should be getting back to preparing dinner, but I have to tell you something really quickly. I thought about you a while ago when I needed to flex my own courage muscle. The short version is that I had a bank fee waived merely because I had the courage to ask for it to be waived. It may seem like a little thing to many people, but I had never done anything like that before, so it was a big deal to me. Again, thank you for all the advice and tips that you share." And so thank you so much, Culture and Arts Mom, for sharing that. There are many times that I am recording and I'm working on posts and working on my blog. I'm currently building out a negotiation curriculum, and I sometimes pause and I say to myself, is this really helping people? And, I'm not really getting as much feedback as I'd like. I'm not sure, but it's so encouraging to receive a message like this, to receive a comment like this. So thank you so much. And if you are listening, or if you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, or you're in the Facebook group and you find that it is helpful in any capacity, let me know. Take a screen grab of you listening to this podcast. Take an opportunity to share your thoughts. If you take a screen grab, you can share it on your Instagram story, or you can just share it as a post. You can share this podcast or other podcasts that you've listened to before that you have found to be very helpful. Share it with a family member, share it with a friend. And essentially, just let me know what your thoughts are. Leave a review. That would be so wonderful to get your feedback and your thoughts there as well. And just let me know overall how this podcast is helping you and what are some things that you're looking to learn about. I think many people really want to flex their own courage muscle, and they just don't know when, they don't know where, and they don't know how. And that is the whole purpose of We Resolve to Win. It's not only about negotiating a bigger salary. It's not only about negotiating your debt, which we'll talk about in a future episode. And it's not only about making sure that you are speaking up in the workplace. It's holistic. It's making sure that you are courageous and that you're showing up for yourself time and time and time and time again. It's for the mom who is struggling with being a mom, who's struggling with motherhood. It's for the executive that is wrestling with the idea of being a manager and not sure if she's able to stand up and be the manager that her team deserves. It's for the person who's going through a trial in their life, whether they are dealing with a very sick family member, or maybe they're going through their own personal illness in their moment and their health is not where it used to be. The goal of this podcast, the goal of the community, the goal of everything that I do is really to be in service of you and to help you be courageous. I know that sometimes we look at other people's lives and we think, oh, I bet they have it so much easier than me, or oh, I wish I could be XYZ, you fill in the blank. But in reality, we all have our struggles. And while we all are aware that we all have our own struggles, I find that many women don't have the right coping mechanisms that they need to undertake some of the challenges that they're going through. And sometimes they feel that running away from that conversation, running away from that situation is going to help them. And there are instances that it may actually be smart, it may be wise to step away from a situation. But if running is your default and you're running every single time you experience a little anxiety, every single time you experience some discomfort, then you've got some work to do. And my goal is to come alongside you and to help you do that work and to give you some things to think about and to give you some perspectives from different women that had to also flex their courage muscle. So thank you, Culture Arts Mom, for commenting, and thank you for listening to this podcast. This is the first episode of many where I will be interviewing women of color in tech. It's important to have this conversation. And as a woman of color in corporate America, it is very difficult at many times, many intervals of my career to look back and think about some of the things that have been said to me, some of the experiences that I've undergone, and essentially recognizing that I am not alone in my experience. It's sad to me that we as women of color, and in particular Black women, have this shared experience where we are constantly seen as the help, or that we are constantly denigrated in a way through microaggressions or sometimes macroaggressions, which we'll talk about in future episodes. And so it's so important to have this conversation and to have it regularly, because without the awareness for ourselves and without raising the awareness and waving that flag for others, other people may not be able to change course and change their direction. So this is the first episode of many where I'm talking to a Black woman in tech. And the reason why I wanted to highlight the tech field is because while the numbers are increasing for Black women in many different industries, it's like gangbusters as it relates to technology. There are women of color increasing steadily within user design, web design, and I wish I could talk about all the various different parts of technology, but unfortunately I can't because I'm not as savvy as most. But please stay tuned, because as I talk to Niesha White in this episode, you'll find that she was very intentional. She was very intentional about creating a community, and I love the advice that she gives. And so with that being said, I am super excited to introduce you to Niesha White, and we will hear the thoughts that she has on being a Black woman in tech. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the We Resolve to Win podcast. I'm excited that today I am talking to Niesha White. Niesha White is based in Burlington, Alabama. So shout out to all of our listeners in Alabama. And Niesha is a woman of color in tech. In particular, she is an African-American woman in tech, and she's based in the South. And I'm going to talk to her today about a lot of different things as it relates to her experience in tech, some things that she has gone through, some things that she has seen, and how courage looks to her, and any advice that she has for individuals that are also interested in tech. But first, let me allow you guys to hear directly from Niesha. So Niesha, welcome.
Hi, everyone. I'm a little nervous, but I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to do this interview.
Yeah, don't be nervous. It's just all of us talking and the world listening. Let's think about that. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got into tech specifically.
Okay, so I'm a web developer, and I'm not just a web developer. I also consider myself a UX designer, which means that when I design something, I'm very user focused. I'm very focused on not just making it look pretty, but making sure it's accessible, making sure that it's easy to use, and making sure that whoever I'm building the website or or designing the mobile app for their users will have a great experience and an intuitive experience. The way that I got into tech, it was, there were a lot of bumps, a lot of changes. So I started off as like a broadcast journalism major. I switched to music industry. Then I switched to graphic design. And as a graphic design major, I really, really enjoyed doing web design and Photoshop and just building out the website and making it look pretty. And I was like, well, maybe I should learn how to actually build this myself so that I can make more money. And so that's how I started. That's what brought me into tech, really. I changed my major to computer science. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since. And that was about
Okay.
3 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So you talked about UX, and that stands for user experience, I'm assuming.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
User experience. So basically, as someone like me I'm not technical, I don't have the technical skills, I would essentially look to you on someone that's working on that other side of the house. I would look to you to make sure that the experience of using the platform, using the technology, using the website makes sense, and that I'm
Yes.
not because I've seen some websites. I've seen some websites. I've seen some
Yeah.
apps, and they need some help as far as UX is concerned, because a
Yeah.
lot of it is not intuitive, as you mentioned, and sometimes you just want to
Right.
find something. I just want to find the book button. Where's the button to
Right.
book this individual? And you're combing through a lot of different things. So your work is very important, and I appreciate that. But I'm wondering, given that do you work in corporate America? Am I assuming that?
I do work
Okay.
in corporate America.
Okay, great. Good assumption then. Okay, so you work in corporate America, and I'm wondering, as a woman of color, as an African American woman, especially in tech, have you experienced anything that made you either question your career path or make you want to leave your career path, or just in general, what have your experiences been as an African American woman in tech?
So, honestly, I'll be really honest about this. I have thought about quitting tech so many times, like too many times to count. And I have to say, it has nothing to do with what I do. I love coding. I love making sure users have a great experience. It's always because of something else, something out of my control. Like usually for me, I would say I don't really have, well, let me back up. Fortunately, I've never had an incident where someone just really outright did something, wrong or said something that was discriminatory. I've never had that happen, fortunately. It's things like just feeling out of place and just feeling like you don't belong, or like feeling like if I say something, the person's listening to me, but do they really care? Or just things like that. So those type of things are the things that have made me want to quit, really. But fortunately, finding a support system and talking to other people helps a lot.
Okay, so that's really good advice. And it's awful that you've gone through that. And I am an African American woman, and I also am someone that works in corporate America. And I have experienced a lot of awful things in my career. And people have said things to me that are considered microaggressions, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
macroaggressions. As
Mm-hmm.
someone with natural hair, I remember going to work one time with my hair freshly done. It was a fresh press. And someone said,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, you look so clean." And I thought to myself,
Oh
are
wow.
you, yeah, right? Exactly. And I thought
Oh
to
my
myself,
gosh.
are you associating natural hair with being dirty? Are you associating natural hair with incompetence? I mean, it's these types of things, right? And I recognize
Yeah.
that a lot of my colleagues that are not women of color, that are specifically not African American, even if they are women of color, they may not have to have that additional thought process where we have to think, is it my skin color? Is it my hair?
Right.
Is it something visually about me? Is it something that I really can't control? I can't control the fact that I was brought into this world as a Black baby, And so when I
Right.
think about your advice as far as finding community, how did you find that community? How did you A, recognize that you needed it, and B, how did you build that community to keep you from not chucking up deuces and quitting, especially when you've experienced a lot of different things while working in corporate America.
So what made me realize I had to find someone was I think talking to family was great, talking to friends was great, but when they don't work in that environment, there are just certain things that you just can't really explain. And it's like, even with my friends at work, because I do have friends at work, I have really close friends at work who are white women, but even talking to them, I can relate to them as a woman, but they're not going to really understand the Black part. So I think what made me realize I had to find some support was when I really felt like quitting tech in general. And then I had to say, why do I want to quit? Like, do I want to quit because I don't like tech or because of how I'm feeling? Once I acknowledged that it was because of how I was feeling, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna leave because of the way I feel. I'm just gonna try to change. I'm gonna see if there's anything I can do to make myself feel better instead of leaving an industry that I really do love, because I love tech. I really do. I love learning new things. I love that it's ever evolving. I really love it. So I didn't want to leave. So I'm like, well, I got to try to find some support.
Mm.
So for me, what's worked with finding support is Facebook groups, like the group we met
Oh,
in.
yeah, yes, that's right. We
Yes.
met in a group for our listeners. We met in a group called a Sister Circle, if I remember correctly, and it's
Mm-hmm.
specifically for women in tech. Now, my listeners know that
Yes.
I am not a person that has a tech background, but I am an attorney that works with technical agreements, tech agreements, implementation, and I work for a company that is in the education space, but is moving towards tech. And so, or education
Right.
tech. So I think that's awesome. So, okay, Facebook groups. All right.
So I would say, and then I started looking at Meetup. So I went to Meetup, and there are groups for like women. There are different like UX groups and things, but I could not find any Black tech groups. So something that I'm actually working on now is starting one. So
Oh, wow.
I just like literally just started working on this maybe last week, starting my own Black tech meetup. So I think that starting this will really give me that support system that I've been seeking. Well, I know it will actually. So I
Wow.
would say for people who like, because I'm from Birmingham, Alabama is small. Well, it's not small, I'll say, but I would say it's small compared to like Atlanta, the big hubs. There aren't as many resources here for Black people in tech. So it was really hard. So if you are, I will say for listeners, if you are living somewhere where it's not really many Black tech organizations for you to meet up in person, look to Facebook groups, look virtually, go to Twitter, follow people from the Black tech Twitter hashtag. There are a lot of
Okay.
resources. There are a lot of people there. Black tech. Ooh, sorry, it's tongue tying. But Black tech pipeline is another hashtag with a lot of Black techies and people who are in the field. So I'll say just look online. Like, and I know it probably won't make up for, having someone there to talk to, but it helps so much when you're having a bad day. You can go to Twitter and see other people who are going through the same thing you're going through and just see those stories.
Yeah. Okay. So you said look for some Facebook groups. Look
Yeah.
at Meetup, especially if you're in a small town and you find that you don't have as many resources as larger cities, larger metropolitan areas.
Right.
So there's Facebook, there's Meetup, and I love that you are creating your own. You can't find
Yeah.
a Black tech network through Meetup, so why not establish your own? I think that takes a lot of
Right.
courage and that takes a lot of bravery. And sometimes people are afraid to branch out and do something like that.
Right.
And rather than taking their own skill set and saying, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and build my own, they allow themselves to, with understanding, but they allow themselves to become sad and isolated. And I
Right.
think isolation is the absolute worst thing that an African American woman can go through, especially working in corporate America. I remember when I first started practicing law And let me tell you, I got some stories. I've got some stories. But when I first started practicing law, I had the ability to join the Black Women's Group, the Miami Black Attorneys Group, and there's a huge, many different groups, and it's great. But when I was overwhelmed, I was still trying to learn the ropes. I couldn't fully understand how to go about networking and meeting other people and anchoring myself
Right.
that way. It didn't become a resource for me. I felt as though it became a burden. And that's, I think,
Mm-hmm.
the problem that a lot of people experience. They're like, oh, there are all these groups, but I feel obligated to join. No, no, no. This is community that can
Mm-hmm.
support you and assist you in a way that without the community, you may find yourself switching careers, you may find yourself becoming depressed, or you may find yourself just overall not performing as well as you could. And we know, and I believe there are many stats to show that when a woman of color or even a man of color does not do well or does not perform well in the job, they don't associate it with that particular person. They associate it with the whole entire group of
Oh
people,
yeah.
right? The whole
Oh
entire
yeah.
group. They make it, often we're seen as a monolith, and we are not. You and I are
Right.
two different people. We have two different cultures. We come from two different states. We have different experiences. We might be in two different generations. I don't know. But the truth of the matter is that that is what happens. And so as part of your professional self-care, if you will, I think it's so good to, like you said, look for face groups, look for the different hashtags that may apply, or the different Twitter
Mm-hmm.
handles, and just find a way to continue to build that community. And if you already have a community, anchor it even further by being involved, by creating things, and being a resource to the resource, which I think is amazing.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so I'm wondering if there are certain trends that you're noticing for women of color in the space. Are you seeing more women of color and Black women join as far as the tech space is concerned, or UX designers? What are some trends that you're noticing?
So I'll say at my job, there haven't really been, changes in Black women, but online, I'm seeing such a big change. Like when I first came into this field, when I would Google things about Black women in tech, the things that I would find, like I would find a few groups, a few conferences maybe, but now I can say there are so many more resources out there. I'm in a group for like product designers for Black women on Facebook. There are, I think that Black women are slowly trickling into the field of tech. I really do think so. And I think that we're gonna see that it's steadily growing, because what I can say about Black people in general is we know how to take a bad situation and make it work. We know
Yeah.
how to take something, we know how to make it work. And I see that Black people are doing that we are creating our own resources. Like it's so much has changed already from when I first started just 3 years ago. When
Yeah.
I look online, I see more and more conferences, more and more events. Like
Yeah.
Atlanta is steadily growing, just
That's
really
right.
expanding.
That's right. Now that you've mentioned that, I think about Afrotech. There's Afrotech.
Yes,
And
yes.
for the listeners, I'm gonna drop all the hyperlinks, all of the different hashtags that Niesha recommends, and the different ways that she's been able to build community. But I specifically remember hearing about Afrotech. This has to be 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I know that the Black Enterprise magazine, is a huge sponsor, a financial sponsor
Yes.
of Afrotech, and also trying to get more African Americans within the tech space to come together in a unique way. So I love that there are
Mm-hmm.
individuals that have conferences and companies that are coming together and sponsoring and spreading the word, and also using social media in a way that's very helpful. I think that sometimes people have good information and they tend to hoard that information for themselves.
Oh
But
yeah.
now it's like, hey, you guys, I'm going to Afrotech. Who's going to Afrotech? And I think I saw that in the group that we're in, a sister circle. I saw that someone said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, anybody going to Afrotech? And there's also another group that I know of called Black and Brown Founders. And that's really good
Mm-hmm.
for individuals that have startups, and also are in the tech space, so that they can build a community. I think they're primarily based in New England in the United States, but they are different chapters that are starting to pop up in the South and out West.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's great. So we have groups, we have meetups, we have social
Mm-hmm.
media. We also have different hashtags, of course, on different platforms, and we have conferences. And I think that is
Yes.
awesome. Going to an annual conference, going to a quarterly conference. I'm curious, does your job sponsor you to attend any conferences?
They have not so far.
Okay.
That is something that I would, I mean, I hope they would do in the future.
Yeah.
I'll say I have asked about being sponsored for a conference before. Um, didn't work out how I wanted,
Okay.
but that's not gonna stop me from asking again.
There you go. Okay, good. So on that point, I didn't mean to go in this direction, but I'm happy that you mentioned that. So to that point, for our listeners, one of the things that you can negotiate while you are in the process of looking at your salary and looking at different benefits, and especially if you work in corporate America, if you're a professional woman and that is your primary bread and butter, you can negotiate your professional development. As you know, Niesha, this is
Mm-hmm.
my platform. That's what I do. I am a negotiation coach. So when you negotiate your professional development, what you want to do is you want to have 2 to 3 different conferences prepared
Mm-hmm.
instead of just going for the one conference that may be coming up in a month or in 2 months or something to that effect. One, it gives you enough time to do research, to talk about the benefits of why this conference would help you and will also help the company. Two, it allows
Mm-hmm.
the company to create a budget for this particular professional development series for you. And also, it gives you the opportunity to continue to use your voice and ask for what you want in the workplace. Sometimes we know companies, they don't have the budget to increase or to give us an
Right.
annual raise. And that is unfortunate. But okay, fine, you can't give me an annual raise. Why not send me to the conference? That way I can network. That
Mm-hmm.
way I can talk to different people, or I can pick up additional skills. And there are some conferences that offer certain certifications that will assist you, so that you kind of have like a badge of honor, if you will. And
Mm-hmm.
you can go back to your job and you can say, not only am I a UX designer, I am also certified to do XYZ, whatever that is. So that is just a quick detour for our listeners as far as negotiations is concerned. You definitely want to negotiate your professional development, because your job is where you are right now, but you may not be at that job in 3 years. You may not be at that job in 5 years. So why not continue to build yourself and build your dossier and your repertoire as far as your professional anchoring? So you can say, I am a UX designer. I've worked for this company. I've gone to these conferences. I've met these individuals. Let me introduce you. Let's shake a hand and let's talk about brokering a deal in the future. So, okay, that's enough. All right. So,
That's
Naisha,
amazing advice.
thank you. Thank
That's
you.
amazing advice. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
seriously. That's
absolutely,
great.
absolutely. And what I'll do for our listeners as well is I will drop a link to a free downloadable on
Mm-hmm.
professional development negotiations and different things that you can do, so that when you go into the conversation, you go into the negotiation, you go into that meeting, you're prepared. So you don't just simply say, hey, there's a conference coming up. Can you send me? And they're going to be like, we don't have it. I'm so sorry. Maybe next year. You can actually say, here are 3 things that I would like to do for the 2020 year. There's one in March, there's one in July, and there's one in
Mm-hmm.
August. Here's the budget, and what can you cover? And if they don't cover everything, fine. But if they can cover at least 2 or 3 things, it will save you money and it'll get you to where you need to go. So, okay, let's back to our regularly scheduled program.
That's such good advice, though. That's
Thank
really good
you.
advice.
Yeah, thank you. And I hope it's helpful to the listeners as well. So if you could do it all over again, and I know you've talked about, building community, and things sound as though they're going great in that direction. But looking back, all things considered, if you could do it all over again, would you stay in tech? Why or why not?
I definitely would. And the reason why I would is because for me specifically, my I'm in tech for me, but I'm also in tech for little girls that are gonna come after me. I'm in tech for people who are in high school and like playing video games, but don't know that they can be video game developers. That's why I'm here. So I would definitely do it again because I have to. I feel like I won't say it's my duty, but I personally feel like I have to share the knowledge that I have, share the information that I know, and encourage other people and be there to support them.
So, on that note, what advice would you have for, the little girl, the little boy that wants to be a game designer or wants to get in tech? What are some things? What is it that you wish you would have known, or that someone would have said to you that you would now advise someone that's younger, a younger generation?
You do not have to be a genius to be in tech. Also, you don't even have the code to be in tech. That's another thing. I think the biggest thing I want to share is that you don't have the code to be in tech. Because I feel like when people think of tech, it's always like pushing code, and that's just one part of it. You can be a
Yeah.
project manager and make so much money. You can be UX designer, make a lot of money. Like there are so many things you can do that don't involve code. So first of all, if you don't like code, don't feel like you can't be in the field, because that's just not true. But also, you don't have to be like, it's not something that's so hard, because want to know what I do most of my day? I Google. That's what I do. We don't know. You don't have to know everything. When I first started my internship, I had just changed my major to computer science. I did not know anything. Like, I'm not even lying when I say I barely knew anything. But I had the will to learn and I wanted to learn. And I'm just a curious person. So I think having certain personality traits are way more important than what you know. One, being curious, wanting to know the answer, and wanting to know why that answer is the correct answer. And also just being a person who's open to learning new things is really important in tech, because it's ever changing. So I think that's most important. You have to be willing to change and open to change, willing to learn new things, because you're always going to have to keep up with what's going on. But
Hmm.
my biggest advice would be, don't don't doubt yourself, and don't feel like you're not smart enough, or I don't know anyone who does this, or I don't know what I want to do in tech. Just get in there and you'll start to figure out what you want to do. Like, you can't figure it out until you try.
So, in other words, I don't have to graduate as a valedictorian of Harvard
Oh
Business
no.
School or something like
You
that.
don't even have to go to school and get a CS degree. Like, there are coding boot camps out there. There are other ways to get in the tech field. And
Mm.
that's one thing I love about tech. You don't have to get a CS degree. You don't have to get an MIS degree. You can go through a coding boot camp and learn everything that we're learning. Or actually probably learn more, because I can honestly say, like, computer science taught me how to think and how to problem solve. It did not teach me a lot of coding.
That's a
I learned that on my own outside of class.
wow.
I had
Okay.
to I had to teach myself web development. I had to go on Udemy and take these courses to teach myself how to
Mm.
build a website. I didn't really learn that in school. So
Wow.
don't
Amazing.
let yeah. So don't let a like college degree or anything like that be a barrier. No.
Right.
There are
Right.
so many resources out there.
Wow. Expand your mind. So I love that. So be curious, be persistent, and be flexible,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
be open to the prospect and the idea that while your resume or your experience or your degree may not look exactly like, these five individuals, that doesn't mean that you cannot enter into the tech space. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That is so brilliant. That is so brilliant. So thank you. So Niesha, how can people get in contact with you? Do you have social media? Do you have a website?
Yeah, so my website is niesha-white.com, and I'll spell that out, niesha-white.com. And you can also find me on Instagram. My handle is Niesha underscore 404. And yeah, those are the best places to find me. My
Okay.
website, especially, because my website has my contact, and my other social media handles are there too. So website is really the best place to go.
Excellent. So I'll be sure to link that information in the show notes for anyone that is listening. If you want to get in contact with Niesha, her website is beautiful, by the way. That's the first thing I said before I
Thank
press
you.
record. I said, "Oh, your website is amazing. This is gorgeous.
Thank
This is
you.
great." So I'll be sure to link that information in the show notes. And thank you so much, Niesha, for your time. talking about your experience and your advice for future Black women in tech.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much. And if anyone has questions, like, I really want to encourage people who aren't in tech, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Please reach out to me. If you want to know anything about jobs that are out there, I'm more than willing to help you out and share what I know.
Excellent, excellent. Niesha is a resource. Make sure that you reach out
Yes.
and use her as a resource. That's awesome. Thanks so much, Niesha.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on this week's episode of We Resolve to Win. But don't worry, the fun doesn't stop there. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at We Resolve to Win. And you can join our free private Facebook group where we share success stories and strategies on negotiating and resolving conflict in all areas of your life. Until next time, be well.